the municipality spoon. Just say hi. Blue Water, Chandra Alexander, Central Huron, Carrie Ann O'Rourke, Goddard, Andrea Fisher, Howick, Carol Watson, Huron East, Jessica Rudy, Morris Turnberry, Kim Johnson, North Huron, Carson Lamb, South Huron, Rebecca Masuya Collison. The hardest name was the last one. So if any of you didn't know, clerks are generally behind the camera, and this is certainly something that was very awkward for them. Good job, guys. So let's get this party started. We like to keep things on time if possible. First, we have the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and they're going to be doing an overview of the 2022 municipal election. I'd like to welcome Caitlin Riddick.
Hello. I think you're sharing our presentation, so I'll just wait for that. Awesome. Thank you so much. So hello, my name is Caitlin Reddick. Attending along with me today from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is Carol Sobe. I'd like to thank Huron County for inviting us and for hosting this candidate and third-party advertiser information session. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, just one ahead. Awesome, thank you. These slides are meant to be a summary of some of the sections and should not be relied on for legal or official purposes. I do want to stress that we are not lawyers and that you should always consult the legislation and seek legal advice when necessary. We will not be able to cover every aspect of the municipal election, but hope that this provides you with a better understanding of the process and legislation and improves your comfort level. Congratulations for taking an interest in your community and in local government, whether you're interested in serving on a municipal council or on a school board or registering as a third-party advertiser. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide outlines some of the topics we want to cover during this session: the roles of elected members of council, head of council, and municipal staff, as well as the role of the school board trustee, the nomination process and how a candidate withdraws a nomination, also what happens if a candidate files a nomination and then changes his or her mind about which office they wish to run for, some key dates, who is eligible to run for municipal office and school boards and who isn't, general campaign rules and election finances, such as campaign spending limits, contribution limits, campaign expenses, borrowing, what expenses are exempt from the spending limit, finance surplus deficit, finance reporting at the end of the campaign, compliance audits initiated by an application, penalties, general information about the voters list, and resources detailed on the second to last slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you're considered running for municipal office. Local government is the level of government that is closest to the people and is the most accessible and responsive to the needs of the community. You've made a decision to throw your hat in the ring, or you're thinking about it and are curious to know how to go about it. Perhaps it's something you've always wanted to pursue, or you want to make a difference, or you're not happy with some of the decisions that have been made, or you have a passion for politics. Regardless, it's a 4-year commitment that will be filled with challenges, excitement, disappointments, hard work, and a great deal of satisfaction. Ontario's municipal governments deliver local services, while the province establishes the legislative and policy framework. The Ontario government sets standards for many local services, such as land use planning, building regulation, and social housing, and the province provides funding to municipalities for delivery of some services. The ministry also works in partnership with the municipal sectors to support efficient and responsive local governments that are sustainable and investment ready. Local government is a challenging environment with high expectations and limited resources, basically doing more with less. There is a limited understanding of roles of council and staff. Government is like no other business. You can't make everyone happy, so council must make difficult decisions in the best interest of the municipality. Before we get into an overview of the Municipal Elections Act, we want to provide a brief summary of the role of elected municipal officials and role of staff. Please note that the information about the role of council and staff and accountability and transparency can also be found in the Councillor's Guide on the ministry's website. This guide is an excellent tool that can provide you with a lot more information about how municipalities operate and how council and staff can work together in the best interest of the municipality. Council and staff roles. First, let me start by saying that Section 2 of the Municipal Elections Act stipulates that municipalities are created by the province to be responsible and accountable governments with respect to matters within their jurisdiction, and each municipality is given powers and duties under the Municipal Act and other pieces of legislation for the purpose of providing good government. The Municipal Act is a legislative framework for municipalities which seeks to balance local autonomy and flexibility with accountability and transparency of municipal operations. The key to an organization, government, business, industry, or local service club is for everyone to understand their respective roles and relationships. In the next few slides, we are going to review the role of the mayor's role as the chief executive officer, the role of council, and the role of municipal staff, which are all key to an effective and efficient local government. Next slide, please. I just think somebody's has their volume on, so if they can please mute themselves, that'd be great. Thank you. Sorry. It is the role of council to represent the public and to consider the well-being and interests of the municipality, develop and evaluate the policies and programs of the municipality, and determine which services the municipality provides. For more information about the role of council, please refer to Section 224 of the Municipal Act. Next slide, please. Thank you. The role of council, this is done as a collective group, with all members each having one vote. Municipalities are created to be responsible and accountable governments with respect to matters within their jurisdiction, and each municipality is given powers and duties under the Municipal Act and many other acts for the purpose of providing good government with respect to those matters. Next slide, please. Thank you. The role of head of council. So the role of head of council is to act as a leader. The head of council is the chair of the meetings of council and the public face of the municipality. Next slide, please. Thank you. Although the legislation refers to the head of council as the chief executive officer of the municipality, this may be confusing to people with a business background. The head of council actually has very few powers that can be exercised independently of the rest of council, except where it's specifically delegated in cases of emergency or in the context of procedural matters during a council meeting. The head of council has no greater power than any other individual member of council. It is important to note that council makes decisions, not any individual council member, including the head of council. To clarify, the head of council always has a vote. There is sometimes confusion on this point in the media and with the public, who think that the head of council can only vote in the case of a tie. Another clarification regarding voting is refraining from voting counts as a no vote. This is spelled out specifically in legislation in the case of recorded votes. A tie loses, so the result is the same as having voted no. Sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. Staff role. The role of staff is set out in Section 227 of the Municipal Act. This would include implementing council's decision and establish administrative practices and procedures to carry out council's decisions, undertake research and provide advice to council on policies and programs of the municipality, carry out duties required by legislation or other duties assigned by the municipality. A key feature of effective and efficient councils is a well-developed understanding of council-staff relations and the role of each party. The Councilor's Guide provides a list of ways that council members can assist staff to meet council's expectations and vice versa with staff in turn. As you know, there are some municipal staff positions that have statutory obligations, such as the clerk, treasurer, chief building official, and fire chief. It is important that council not interfere with the statutory obligations of those roles. For example, the clerk and treasurer positions have statutory duties or responsibilities assigned to them under the Municipal Act or other pieces of legislation. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm sorry, I think Randy has their volume or they're not muted. So if Randy can mute himself, that would be great. The role of the Chief Administrative Officer. So the Municipal Act sets out the role of the Chief Administrative Officer in Section 229. A municipality may appoint a Chief Administrative Officer who shall be responsible for exercising general control and management of the affairs of the municipality for the purpose of ensuring the efficient and effective operation of the municipality and performing such other duties as are assigned by the municipality. The function of the CAO within the municipality is generally akin to the role of a chief executive officer in a business environment. The CAO is responsible for the general control and management of the day-to-day operations of the municipality, which may include developing and implementing appropriate internal administrative practices and procedures to ensure the efficient, effective, and accountable operation of the municipality. Next slide, please. Council staff relationship and roles. The Councilor's Guide provides some very useful information on how council and staff can work together. This slide provides you with a high-level overview of the relationship. Councils and their administration have different roles within the municipality, but the roles have common goals and purposes. In general, it is the role of the elected council to represent the community and set the direction and policy for the municipality. And it is the role of staff to manage people and resources to achieve council's vision. Council generally sets the policy direction for the municipality, and staff provides the research and expert advice to help council in its decision-making process. Once council makes a decision, staff generally has the responsibility to implement the policy of council, for example, through administrating and delivering services and programs to the community. Staff and council rely on one another to move the municipality forward. Both staff and council provide leadership. Council provides political leadership, while administration provides leadership to the organization. The relationship between staff and council is interconnected, and it is important for council members and staff to respect one another's roles so that they can serve the public in an effective and efficient manner. Municipalities are required to adopt a policy on the relationship between members of council and municipal staff. Municipalities have the flexibility to determine the content of these policies. Next slide, please. Thank you. Accountability and transparency. Ontario's municipalities and members of council operate under a legislative accountability and transparency framework that include rules for the municipalities and rules for members of council and local boards. Ensuring accountability and transparency is one of council's roles under Section 224 of the Municipal Act and is a priority in maintaining public trust. Councilors are, of course, accountable to the public as elected officials. However, it is also important that procedures and policies are clearly set out and accessible, and that the day-to-day operations of the municipality are transparent. The slide outlines policies that councils are required to adopt. Next slide, please. Thank you. Codes of conduct. Codes of conduct are usually set out usually set out expectations and standards for counselor conduct. Codes may help prevent ethical conflicts and help in their resolution, serve as a basis for council orientation and training, and serve as a reference throughout the operation of council's term. With the growing importance of accountability and integrity, more municipalities have adopted codes of conduct for members of council and certain local boards. Some have also adopted other procedures, rules, and policies governing the ethical behavior of those members. Municipalities are required to establish codes of conduct for members of council and certain local boards, which must include certain subject matters. These would include gifts, benefits, and hospitality, respectful conduct, including towards officers, employees of the municipality or local boards, confidential information, and use of municipal or local board property and equipment. Next slide, please. Thank you. Accountability officers. So codes of conduct, integrity commissioners. Municipalities are required to provide access to an integrity commissioner. An integrity commissioner operates independent of council and reports to council with respect to the application of a code of conduct of members of council and local boards. Procedures, rules, and policies governing the ethical behavior of members of council and local board. The IC functions may also include providing advice and education about the code and other ethical rules to members of council and the public, as well as conducting inquiries into requests from council or local board. A member of council or a board or a member of the public about whether a member of council or local board has contravened the applicable code of conduct. If the IC reports that, in their opinion, a member of council has contravened the code of conduct, the municipality may impose a penalty in the form of a reprimand or a suspension of pay for a period of up to 90 days. It's up to the municipality to decide to proceed after the IC's report. To help ensure integrity and accountability in public office, the Municipal Act provides municipalities with authority to appoint certain integrity and accountability type officers. These include municipal ombudsman. This officer's function is to investigate in independent decisions and recommendations made and actions done or omitted in the course of the administration of the municipality. Local boards or certain municipalities, municipal corporations as the municipality specifies. This is a separate office from the Ontario Ombudsman, who also has the role with respect to municipalities. Auditor General, who may assist council in holding itself and municipal administrators accountable for the quality of stewardship over public funds and achieving value for money in municipal operations. The Auditor General must also perform his or her duties in an independent manner. The Auditor General's responsibilities do not include the responsibilities of the municipal auditor. Municipalities also may, if they wish, appoint a lobbyist, registry and registrar and registration system, such as establishing a code of conduct for lobbyists and prohibiting former public office holders from lobbying for a specified time period. Next slide, please. Ontario Ombudsman. So the Ontario Ombudsman has had a role with respect to municipalities. This role builds on the local accountability and transparency framework in the Municipal Act. This role is in addition to the Ontario Ombudsman role as the default meeting investigator for municipalities that have not appointed a local meeting investigator. The Ontario Ombudsman supports transparency in government and may recommend improvements. The Ontario Ombudsman may investigate municipalities when a complaint is received on the Ombudsman's own initiative. Although the Ontario Ombudsman may investigate, they cannot compel municipalities to take action. The Ontario Ombudsman may make recommendations to council and the municipality as part of their report. It is up to the municipality whether and how to address any recommendations made by the Ombudsman. It is up to the Ombudsman how to respond to complaints. For example, the Ontario Ombudsman's practice is to investigate complaints made to local integrity officers only after the local complaint process are complete. The Ontario Ombudsman does not replace locally established complaint mechanisms or act as an integrity commissioner for municipalities. Local integrity officers and municipal codes of conduct are an important part of Ontario's local accountability framework. For more information on the Ontario Ombudsman, including its processes, please see the Ontario Ombudsman Act and the Ontario Ombudsman's website. Next slide, please. Thank you. Privacy and confidentiality. Personal privacy and other confidentiality issues are an important practical and legal consideration for municipal councillors and staff. The Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act is the primary statute for privacy and confidentiality. It sets out rules for collection, use, and disclosure of personal information. According to these rules, councillors and staff in most circumstances protect personal privacy and only collect, use, and disclose personal information in accordance with those rules. For example, depending on circumstances, councillors and staff may or may not be authorized to obtain personal information in the course of their duties. This might mean that at times councillors could not obtain this kind of information from staff. Municipal freedom of information legislation also regulates confidential information of other kinds, in addition to personal information. Other laws, including local bylaws, also regulate personal and other kinds of confidential information. Councillors who may have received personal or other confidential information in the course of their duties will have related responsibilities such as protecting and safeguarding the information. Councillors may wish to check with municipal staff about appropriate measures and the municipality's practices. Next slide, please. Role of school board trustee. School trustees are members of the school board. They are locally elected representatives of the public, and they are the community's advocate for public education. Only the board, not an individual trustee, has the authority to make decisions or take action. A trustee is often the first point of contact for parents and community members who have questions and or concerns about their local school. Candidates should contact the applicable school board for further information about duties and communities. Next slide, please. Thank you. The role of a school board trustee is to establish policy direction, participate in making decisions that benefit the entire school board while representing the interests of constituents. School board trustees are accountable to constituents, Ministry of Education, and families. Next slide, please. Municipal office eligibility and ineligibility. You must be an eligible elector, which means you must be able to vote. So the list above is a list that shows voter eligibility as well as ineligibility to run and hold office. You can only be nominated if, as of the day you are nominated, you are qualified to hold that office under the act and are not ineligible under the Municipal Elections Act or any other act or otherwise prohibited by law to be nominated or to hold the office. Please note that the municipal clerk is responsible for setting up and running the voting places used in a municipal election. The clerk must comply with any provincial or local public health measures that are in effect and may also put in place additional procedures that they consider necessary for conducting the election. Next slide, please. Thank you. School board trustee eligibility and ineligibility. Questions about school board eligibility should be directed to the school board secretary. Please refer to this chart to see eligibility and ineligibility, or for more information, please refer to the Education Act. Next slide, please. Thank you. Third-party advertisers. A third-party advertiser is an individual, corporation, or trade union that is registered in the municipality to promote, support, or oppose a candidate or a yes or no answer to a question on the ballot. A third-party advertiser means an advertisement in any broadcast, print, electronic, or other medium that has the purpose of promoting, supporting, or opposing a candidate or a yes or no answer to a question on the ballot. Next slide, please. Thank you. Third-party advertiser eligibility and ineligibility. Only the following persons and entities are eligible to file a notice of registration: an individual who is normally a resident in Ontario, a corporation that carries on business in Ontario, a trade union that holds bargaining rights for employees in Ontario. Next slide, please. Thank you. The nomination process. The first day for filing nominations was May 1st, 2022. The last day and time for filing nominations for the 2022 elections is on Friday, August 19th, 2022 by 2 p.m. The nomination filing fees only refunded once a candidate submits a completed financial disclosure of all financial transactions made up to the date that the nomination was withdrawn. The nomination day for a regular election is the fourth Friday in August in the year of the election. In 2022, that is August 19th of this year. Withdrawal of a nomination. So local election policies may state a candidate must personally attend the clerk's office to withdraw candidacy. If a candidate is in the hospital or incapacitated, this may not be feasible. If a candidate withdraws a nomination, they are still required to file a campaign financial statement covering all of the financial transactions made in the campaign. If they have not spent any money nor raised any funds, they can click on the box inside the form and it is complete. If a nomination is withdrawn, the candidate is entitled to a refund of their nomination filing fee only after they file their financial auditor statements by the required deadline. An issue that is raised infrequently but is of importance nonetheless is what happens to a candidate, what happens to a campaign which has been open and a candidate decides to run for a different office. Next slide, please. Nomination process continued. So nominations started on May 1st and they closed on August 19th of 2022. Nominations can be submitted to the clerk from anyone who meets the eligibility criteria to run for office. Candidates must complete Form 1, the nomination paper, and submit it to the clerk along with applicable nomination filing fee. The filing fee is $200 for anyone running for the head of council and $100 for all other offices. The clerk must be satisfied that you are eligible to run in order to certify your nomination. The clerk can ask you to show identification or fill out an additional form to prove that you are eligible to run for that particular office. The nomination form must have an original signature. If your nomination is not certified by the clerk, your name will not appear on the ballot. If there is if you're in a ward system, as long as you are eligible to vote in the municipality, you may run in any ward. If you do run in a ward where you do not live, you will not be able to vote for yourself, as you must vote in the ward in which you reside. Next slide, please. Thank you. Nomination process, 25 signatures required. So municipal council candidates are required to obtain 25 signatures on Form 2. Please note that forms for the 2022 municipal elections are available on the Central Forms Repository. If you need more assistance, please reach out to your municipal clerk. OREG 101-97 provides an exemption to this requirement for candidates in municipalities with less than 4,000 electors. The requirement for nominators to sign nomination forms does not apply to school board candidates. Please refer to Section 33, subsection 1.1 in the Municipal Elections Act. Nominators can nominate more than one candidate and are not required to vote for that candidate. Nominators must meet the eligibility requirements of a municipal elector at the time they sign the nomination form. In a ward system, the nominator can be anyone who is eligible to vote in the municipality, not just the ward. Both the clerk and the candidate are entitled to rely upon the information provided by the nominator. If the nominator did not meet the eligibility requirements when they sign the document, then they could be held accountable under the penalty section of the Municipal Elections Act. Next slide, please. Running for a different office. Occasionally, a candidate changes their mind and decides to run for a different office, you can only run for one office at a time. If a candidate files a second nomination, the first nomination is deemed to be withdrawn. If a candidate decides to run for another office, they have already collected the 25 endorsement signatures, they can use these endorsements for the other office. If a candidate decides to run for a different office on the same council or school board and both positions are elected at large, everything from the first campaign is transferred to the second campaign, and only one financial statement needs to be filed. Unless the candidate decides to run for a different office on the same council or school board and one or both offices are elected by the ward, the two campaigns must be kept separate and two financial statements must be filed. Next slide, please. Registration of third-party advertisers. Individuals, corporations, and trade unions may register to be third-party advertisers. There's no registration fee for third-party advertisers. A third-party advertiser would register with the clerk at the local municipality as per section 88.6 subsection 1. An individual, corporation, or trade union may, in person or by an agent, file with the clerk of the municipality responsible for conducting an election a notice of registration to be registered third party for the election, and the notice must be filed in the prescribed form and must include a declaration of qualification signed by the individual or a representative of the corporation or trade union, as the case may be. And section 88.6 subsection 2, a notice of registration may only be filed with the clerk of the local municipality. Once registered, they may advertise in support of or opposition to any candidate being elected by voters in that municipality. This would include council trustees and directly elected upper tier candidates. To advertise regarding questions on the ballot will require registration as a third-party advertiser. I'm sorry, can Central Huron please turn off their mic? The feedback is really crazy. I'm sorry, I'm just going to continue. To advertise regarding questions on the ballot will require registration as a third-party advertiser. For a regular election, the registration cannot be filed earlier than the first day for filing nominations and cannot be filed later than the Friday before voting day during the clerk's office hours. Section 88.6 subsection 3 notes that once the clerk certifies the notice of registration, the individual, corporation, or trade union is a registered third party for the election. Third party advertising is geographically based and is structured around the concept of influencing a specific set of voters in a specific location. Registering in the municipality where the TPA hopes to influence votes allows flexibility to support or advocate against any candidate in that specific geography. If an individual wants to influence voters in more than one municipality, for example, over 3 municipalities covered in a specific school board trustee election, he or she would have to register in each of the 3 municipalities and conduct their activities as 3 separate campaigns. Next slide, please. Registration of third-party advertisers continued. So third-party advertiser withdrawal. The third-party advertiser's registration is deemed to be withdrawn if they file a nomination. This means that their advertising campaign would automatically end when they file their nomination. If a corporation or trade union is registered as a third-party advertiser, it would not be affected by a person filing a nomination, as the person would not be the same entity. A third-party advertiser and a candidate would need to be careful to distance their activities, as third-party advertising may not take place under the direction of a candidate. The existing campaign finance rules would not change. Finances relating to a third-party advertising campaign cannot be transferred to a candidate's campaign. The existing campaign cannot be transferred to a candidate's campaign. The existing campaign finance rules would not change. A third-party advertiser who withdraws and closes their campaign cannot transfer that campaign to someone else. To maintain financial transparency around third-party advertising campaigns, the financial statements of third-party advertisers who end their campaign early should reflect their finances as of the day their campaign ended. The registration period for third-party advertisers runs until the Friday before voting day. October 21st, 2022 are the last day the clerk's office is open before voting day in a by-election. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Carol to continue. Thanks.
Thank you, Caitlin. Do you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, we're gonna look into contributions. So campaign accounts are only required if the candidate or third-party advertiser raises or spends money. So for acclamations and campaigns where no funds are raised or spent, there's no need for a campaign account. Trade unions and corporations are not eligible to contribute to candidates' campaigns, although they can participate in the election as third-party advertisers or make contribution to third-party advertising campaigns. Third-party advertisers will generally need to follow the same rules for raising campaign funds and financial reporting as candidates for office. Municipalities must establish rules and procedures regarding the use of municipal or local board resources during the campaign period. So this must be passed by May 1st in the year of the election. This will encourage accountability and transparency. So ensure that you are aware of the municipality's policy in this regard. The practice of municipalities of providing candidate contact information on their website is not a contribution. And generally, the same contribution rules will apply to third-party advertiser campaigns as to candidates. So refer to both when the rule applies to both. Next slide, please. So contributions from the candidate and their spouse are considered to have come from the same person and count against the self-contribution limit. The rules for determining whether corporations are considered to be one contributor are clarified. So if one corporation controls the other directly or indirectly, then they are considered to be the same contributor. If the corporations are owned or controlled by the same person or groups of persons, either directly or indirectly, they are considered to be the same contributor. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the value of volunteers, the services provided by volunteers is generally not considered to be a contribution. If a professional like an accountant or lawyer volunteers to provide services for which they would normally be paid, the market value of the service must be recorded as a contribution by the volunteer and is a campaign expense. So as mentioned previously, only third-party advertisers can accept contributions from corporations and unions. Next slide, please. Campaign contributions are monies, goods, or services given to a candidate for his or her election campaign. Cash contributions may only be accepted up to $25. Contributions more than $25 must be made by check, money order, or by a method that clearly shows where the funds came from. Fundraising functions are events or activities held by or on behalf of the candidate for the primary purpose of raising money for the candidate's campaign. So the price of admission to a fundraising function is a campaign contribution, and a receipt must be issued for the full amount. Receipts must be issued for every contribution and should contain the name and address of the contributor and the amount and date. Next slide, please. So contribution limits. The limit on contributions to any one candidate or registered third-party advertiser is $1,200, except for the City of Toronto mayoral candidates, in which case the amount is $2,500. The individual contribution amount has increased from $750 to $1,200, but the aggregate amount of $5,000 stays the same. Since candidates and third-party advertisers are required to inform contributors of contribution limits, you may want to include the limits on the receipts provided to the contributors. Next slide, please. So self-funding limits. Self-funding limits for municipal council candidates is based on the number of electors voting for the office to a maximum of 25,000 per candidate. So the formula for calculating the limit is 7,500 plus 20 cents per elector for head of council and 5,000 plus 20 cents per elector for other council offices. The highest self-funding limit that anyone can possibly have is 25,000. So if the formula works out to a number that is over 25,000, they still get the 25,000 limit. If the formula works out to less than 25,000, then they get whatever the formula works out to be. Next slide, please. So borrowing. While candidates can open their campaign account with their own funds, the candidate cannot loan funds to his or her campaign to kickstart it with the intention of getting it all back. The only way that a candidate can reclaim the startup amount is after the election campaign period ends and prior to filing the financial statement, the candidate or his or her spouse may be refunded any contributions from surplus. So you can't receive a loan from family members or from any corporate accounts that you may have access to. The loan isn't considered to be a campaign income, and paying it back is not a campaign expense. But if you or your spouse guarantees the loan and the campaign does not repay all of it, the remaining balance is considered to be a contribution, since the guarantor is basically providing the campaign the means to repay the loan. Keep in mind the contribution limit for the candidate and spouse if borrowing. Any interest that the campaign pays on the loan is a campaign expense. Next slide, please. So campaign expenses. What are the expenses? Well, you've got the replacement value of goods retained by the person, individual, corporation, or trade union from any previous election in the municipality and used in the current election. The value of contributions of goods and services, audit and accounting fees, interest on loans under section 88.17, the cost of holding fundraising functions, the cost of holding parties and making other expressions of appreciation after the close of voting. So for a candidate, expenses relating to a recount or a proceeding under section 83, expenses relating to a compliance audit, expenses that are incurred by a candidate with a disability or a registered third party who is an individual with a disability are directly related to the disability and would not have occurred but for the election to which the expense relate. The cost of election campaign advertisements, and that's within the meaning of section 88.3, or third party advertisements as the case may be. So for greater certainty, the cost of holding fundraising functions does not include costs that are related to events or activities that are organized for such purposes as promoting public awareness of a candidate and at which the soliciting of contributions is incidental, or promotion materials in which the soliciting of contributions is incidental. Next slide, please. So campaign expenses continued. Candidates and third-party advertisers should become familiar with campaign expense provisions. So campaign expenses are those costs incurred by the candidate or on the candidate's behalf during his or her campaign, or by third-party advertisers during their campaign. The nomination filing fee is no longer an expense and is not included on the financial disclosure form. Goods and services donated to the campaign are also expenses and must be reported. A receipt must be provided for fair market value. Only nominated persons and or third-party advertisers can incur expenses during their campaign period. So payment of any campaign expense must be drawn from the campaign account, and a receipt providing the details and proof of payments must be obtained. All expenses must be reported in the relevant financial disclosure form to be filed with the clerk by the candidate or the third-party advertiser. So with respect to campaign inventory, if you ran in the last election and you want to use leftover goods, such as signs or office supplies, you have to determine what the current market value for those goods is and what it would cost you if you were to purchase them today. These amounts are recorded as an expense. Conversely, if you end up with a leftover inventory at the end of this campaign and it becomes your personal property, but if you want to store them to use in another election, any costs for storage are not considered campaign expenses. Next slide, please. So spending limits. The spending limit formula for candidates and the maximum amounts for parties after voting day are set out in Ontario Regulation 101-97. So the clerk calculates the spending limits twice. The first time upon a candidate filing the nomination form, the clerk shall calculate the spending limit based on the number of electors on the voters list as it existed on September 15, 2018. The second calculation is based on the number of electors on the voters list as it exists on September 15, 2022. So note, this calculation must be provided to candidates on or before September 25, 2022. And whichever number is higher is the spending limit, and the clerk's calculation is final. Next slide, please. So clerks will continue to provide estimates of the spending limits. Dates have been slightly amended with transition dates from the 2018 election. So candidates will be required to inform the contributors of the contribution limit, so how much a contributor can contribute to an individual's candidate's campaign, and the aggregate limit on contributions to any one council or local board election. Spending limit is to be provided by September 25. And if a third-party advertiser has registered in more than one municipality, each registration is a separate campaign with its own spending limits. The campaign finance rules are generally the same for third-party advertisers as they are for candidates. So they're subject to the same contribution limits and have calculated spending limits. So this includes financial filing requirements, requests for extension, and records. Third-party advertisers are also required to ensure contributions and expenses are tracked and accounted for. Proper record retention, proper direction is provided to those incurring expenses or accepting contributions on their behalf, and that spending limits are adhered to. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. So expenses not subject to the spending limits. So most expenses are subject to the spending limit. Those listed on the slide are not. So expenses related to fundraising functions are exempt from the campaign spending limit, but in order to qualify as a fundraising function, an event must have the raising of money as its primary purpose. Campaign events at which incidental fundraising takes place do not qualify as fundraising functions. Similarly, a brochure promoting awareness of a candidate that contains contact information to make campaign contributions doesn't qualify as a fundraising function. Expenses that were subject to the spending limit if incurred before voting day are not subject to the spending limit if incurred after voting day. All right, next slide, please. So third-party advertisers spending limit. Third-party advertisers will be subject to two spending limits: a general spending limit and a separate limit for expenses related to parties and expressions of appreciation after the close of voting. So Ontario Regulation 101-97 provides the following formula for calculating third-party spending limits: 5,000 plus 5 cents per elector to a maximum of 25,000. The formula used is based on the number of electors entitled to vote in an election in the municipality. So the Municipal Election Act also provides that the spending limit for parties and other expressions of appreciation after voting day be set at 10% of the general spending limit. So this would be consistent with the spending limit in place with for candidates. Next slide, please. So campaign finance rules. As a candidate or a third-party advertiser, it is important that you be fully aware of the responsibilities regarding election spending and accepting campaign contributions. So a question we're asked each municipal election is whether there's a requirement for every candidate to have a chief financial officer. The answer is no. We suggest that you familiarize yourself with sections 88.8 to 88.21 of the Municipal Elections Act, and also the financial statements that you will be required to file. This will help you guide you in organizing your records and how they have to be reported. So you are required under the Municipal Elections Act to keep accurate records and open a campaign bank account if you're spending any money or accepting any contributions. So a bank account is not required if the candidate or third-party advertiser does not receive or spend money. All right, next slide, please. So campaign advertisements. Oh my God. So the period for third-party advertisement, as shown on the slide, is the period when the rules for third-party advertisers applies. In 2022, that's from May 1st, 2022 until the close of voting at 8 p.m. on October 24th, 2022. Note third-party advertisers and candidates are required to identify themselves on signs and advertisements. I'm just wondering, did you have slide 45? Did you put that one on? Could you just go back one? I just want to see something. Yeah, I think you skipped that one. So I'm going to go through that one, sorry. Okay, so these are rules of finance, and we really have to talk about those. Store receipts in a secure place as they are valuable documents. Receipts must be signed by the candidate or his or her designate. And it is good practice to have a receipt that's multi-part form, one for the contributor and one or more for the candidate's records. So receipts should be sequentially numbered. Open a bank account which provides monthly statements and cancel checks if you need it. Produce duplicate deposit slips for every deposit, listing the names of the contributors and the amounts received for each. Also, maintain a petty cash fund to handle minor expenses and obtain invoices to support all payments. Sorry, I'm seeing a message coming in. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm gonna get this a little bit down. So maintain a petty cash fund to handle the minor expenses, and any time the cash on hand plus the total amount of invoices should equal the original amount of the petty cash fund. The fund can be replenished periodically by a check drawn on the campaign account in an amount equal to the total amount of the invoices. So candidates and third-party advertisers may find it useful to look over Form 4, number 4, that's for candidates, and Form 8 for third-party advertisers. So at the beginning of the campaign, look through those forms to give you an idea of what information will be needed to report on at the end of the campaign. It is a requirement under the Municipal Elections Act to maintain records until November 15, 2026. All right, now we're going to jump. We've already did the campaign advertisements. We're going to jump to the next one. Okay, so we're continuing the campaign advertisements. So the broadcaster or publisher of a third party or candidate advertisement shall maintain records containing the following information for a period of 4 years after the date the advertisement appears, and shall permit the public to inspect the records during normal business hours. So that's the name of the candidate and or registered third-party advertiser, the name, business address, and telephone number of the individual who deals with the broadcaster or publisher under the direction of the candidate or registered third-party advertiser, a copy of the advertisement or the means of reproducing it for inspection, and a statement of the charge made for its appearance. Next slide, please. So we're continuing with financial statements now. Section 88, subsection 25 of the Municipal Elections Act discloses that all candidates are required to file Form 4 with the clerk, regardless of how much or how little they spent or fundraised. So if you file a nomination form, you must file a Form 4. This form is required even if you withdrew your nomination or you were acclaimed. If you registered as a third-party advertiser, you must complete Form 8. So a candidate may resubmit a financial statement to correct an error up until the filing deadline. The clerk is required to make public a record of which candidates filed financial statements and which did not. Next slide, please. So again, all contributions must be recorded. The names of contributors who contribute more than $100 must be reported on the financial statement. The clerk is required to make financial statements available to the public in an electronic format free of charge. The appointment of an auditor by the candidate is mandatory if the expenses or contributions exceed $10,000. The auditor must be licensed under the Public Accounting Act 2004. Note that campaign statements are public documents. Next slide, please. So we're continuing with financial statements. Candidates can file their financial documents at any time after voting day up to January 3rd. And this was adjusted from December 31st as it falls on a Saturday. Filing the financial statement ends the campaign period. So this will make it easier for acclamations and campaigns where little or no expense is incurred. Clerks will be required to report whether candidates have met their financial filing obligation and publish that report on the municipal website or in another electronic form. This needs to be done by April 30th in the case of regular election or within 90 days of a by-election. Clerks can determine the conditions for the electronic filing of financial statements. Next slide, please. No, there must be another one before that. Sorry, I think it jumped one. Yes, this is where we are. Yeah. So the nomination fee is only refundable if the financial statement is filed on time. A candidate third-party advertiser who misses the filing deadline may file within 30-day grace period, provided a $500 late filing fee is paid to the municipality. Please note that a candidate who chooses to file within the 30-day grace period will be subject to both the $500 late filing fee as well as the loss of their nomination refund. A candidate third-party advertiser may resubmit a financial statement to correct an error up until the filing deadline. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're talking about surplus. When filing the financial statement, a candidate or third-party advertiser with a campaign surplus may pay the entire amount to the clerk. So prior to paying over any surplus funds to the clerk, a candidate or a third-party advertiser is entitled to a refund for any contributions they or their spouse, in the case of an individual, made to the campaign and not to anyone else. The amount that may be refunded is the lesser of the amount of the relevant contribution, or the amount of the surplus. So the clerk is required to place surplus monies in trust for use by the candidate if they need it for a compliance audit. The clerk is required to place surplus monies in trust as well for the third-party advertiser if they need it for compliance audit. So if neither the candidate nor third-party advertiser requires the funds for these purposes, it becomes the property of the municipality or school board. I'm going to pass on the next slides to my colleague, Caitlin.
Thanks, Carol. So compliance audits. So every council and school board must establish a compliance audit committee. Members of a compliance audit committee cannot be members of the council or school board. An employee or an employee, a candidate in the election, or registered third-party advertiser. Clerks are to review contributions and to prepare a report for consideration by the Compliance Audit Committee. If a contributor appears to have exceeded any contribution limits, this process is related to reviewing contributions as reported on the financial statements and is not connected to the compliance audit process. If it is apparent to the clerk that a contributor has exceeded one or more of the contribution limits, the clerk would report this to a committee, which would meet to determine whether to proceed with legal action. The legislation does not specify what details are to be provided in the report to the committee. Electors entitled to vote in an election may apply for a compliance audit even if the candidate has not filed a financial statement. The application must be in writing and set out the electors' reasons for why they believe the Municipal Elections Act has been contravened. The application must be submitted to the municipal clerk or the secretary of the school board within 90 days of the filing deadline. The Compliance Audit Committee will consider the application and decide whether to retain an auditor to undertake a compliance audit of the candidate's financial return. Next slide, please. Thank you. The Compliance Audit Committee is required to provide brief written reasons for its decisions. The Compliance Audit Committee meetings are required to be open to the public, but the committee may deliberate in private. Electors can apply for a compliance audit of a third-party advertiser's campaign finances. The minister has the authority to make a regulation setting out qualifications for compliance audit committee members. The audit committee members consider, the committee considers the auditor's report. If the compliance audit determines that there has been an apparent contravention of the Municipal Elections Act, the committee will determine whether to proceed with legal action. Decisions of the committee may be appealed to the Superior Court of Justice. A person who believes that a candidate has contravened the Municipal Elections Act may proceed with legal action without having first obtained a compliance audit. Next slide, please. Offenses. Section 90 of the Municipal Elections Act, subsection 2, an offense described in subsection 3 and 2 constitutes a corrupt practice, and a person who commits it is on conviction disqualified from voting at an election until the next regular election has taken place after the election to which the offense relates, in addition to being liable to any other penalty provided in this act. No person shall directly or indirectly offer, give, lend, or promise or agree to give or lend any valuable consideration in connection with the exercise or non-exercise of an elector's vote, advance pay or cause to be paid money intending that it be used to commit an offense referred to in clause A, or knowing that it will be used to repay money used in that way. Give, procure, or promise or agree to procure an office or employment in connection with the exercise or non-exercise of an elector's vote. Apply for, accept, or agree to accept any valuable consideration or office or employment in connection with the exercise or non-exercise of an elector's vote. And lastly, give, procure, or promise or agree to procure an office or employment to induce a person to become a candidate, refrain from becoming a candidate, or withdraw with his or her candidacy. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Penalties. So this chart provides an outline of penalties inflicted under the Municipal Elections Act with respect to individuals, candidates, or trade, and lastly, trade union or corporations. Next slide, please. The voters list. Section 23 states that the clerk shall not provide a copy of the voters list until voters list under subsection 3 or part of the voters list under subsection 4 until September 1st of 2022. Next slide, please. Thank you. Candidates running an award are entitled only to that portion of the list that contains the names of the electors entitled to vote for that office. Next slide, please. The clerk may require anyone who receives a copy of the list to sign a receipt acknowledging the list is only to be used for election purposes, and any other use would be in violation of the Municipal Elections Act. An elector's name shall appear only once on the list. In a ward system, an elector is entitled to vote only in the ward where he or she resides. Next slide, please. Key dates. Voting day is Monday, October 24th, 2022, between 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. unless reduced hours are set out in a bylaw for retirement homes and institutions, or council has passed a bylaw to open voting earlier than 10 a.m. The campaign period, the time when a candidate can accept contributions and incur election expenses, runs from the date the nomination is submitted up until January 3rd, 2023. The campaign period, the time the third-party advertiser can incur expenses, begins on the date the registration is certified. The earliest date is May 1st, 2022 until January 3rd, 2023. The deadline for the filing of the campaign financial statement in the clerk's office is Friday, March 31st, 2023, no later than 2 p.m. All candidates and third-party advertisers must file this statement regardless of how much they spent or received in contributions. Next slide, please. Resources. The first link will take you to the eLaws website where all provincial legislation is available online, including the associated regulations. You will want to be familiar with the Municipal Elections Act, the Municipal Act, and the Municipal Conflicts of Interest Act, and if running for a school board, the Education Act. The second link is to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing website. From the site, you'll be able to access the 2022 Voters Guide, Candidates Guide, and the Third-Party Advertisers Guide. Lastly, there's the Municipal World link. If you click on the icon bookshop, it illustrates a list of books that are related to running for municipal office. They are available to purchase online. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, Caitlin Reddick, your municipal advisor at caitlin.reddick@ontario.ca. We'll be staying on the line. So if you have any questions, please feel free, and thank you very much.
Okay, everyone. I know there was a lot of information in there. So if anyone has any questions, if you're attending virtually, you can type them in the chat, or we can do a raised hand feature and we can just let you speak. We'll unmute you. Or if anybody's in present, if you have any questions, we'll have somebody reach out to you. Anyone?
I see we got one question from Karen asking if we can speak on county council. I think that would be more of a question for the municipality.
Karen, we are going to have a section briefly on county council near the end. I'm going to speak to that if that is okay. You're welcome. Any other questions? Watching both. Okay. So thank you very much, Caitlin and Carol. I know there's a lot of information in there and it's hard to absorb all of it. So as she indicated, you can certainly contact Caitlin if you forget her contact information. Talk to your local clerk. She'll be able to get it for you, or you can ask your local clerk. So next on our list is MPAC, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. We've got Jeremy Go, Andrew Cole, and Ann Haynes are in attendance. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much for having us and for the invitation to attend the Huron County Candidate Information Session. So I just want to start off introducing my team members, and I know you just gave a little mini intro there, but and who I am, a little bit about myself. So my name's Ann Haynes, and I'm the Regional Manager in Zone 1 at MPAC, and my area covers from Dufferin County to Windsor. And Jeremy Goff is the account manager online tonight, and Andrew Cole is our account support coordinator. They both service a large geographic area in Zone 1, including Huron County. So we are the main contact for municipal administrative staff as well as council. So while property owners would reach out to our field office staff or a customer contact center, we're the one-stop shop for you. So I don't know if someone's going to display our deck, or if you need us to do that, but oh, that's perfect.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I just, on this next slide, I highlighted who we are. So that's a takeaway that you'll have with you, and I'll just jump right into the next slide, please. Okay, so as you're all aware, you're here tonight. The municipal and school board elections, it's held every 4 years, and the next one is fastly approaching this fall in October of 2022. And you might be wondering why and how MPAC is involved in this process. So since municipal and school board voting rights in Ontario happen to be tied to a person's relationship to their property, and we have the database of over 5.4 million properties in Ontario, that's the link, or that's the connection. So the province, municipalities and school boards, as well as MPAC, all have key roles to play. And I'm not going to read every single role because we're here tonight to focus on our role in the municipal enumeration process at MPAC, as we provide both legislated and non-legislated deliverables and products to support municipalities and school boards through this process. So our next slide highlights the preliminary list of electors. This is one of those legislated deliverables that we are required to provide to all municipal clerks in an election year, or when there's a by-election, we have to provide the preliminary list of electors, or otherwise known as the PLE. So you might hear that. The municipality has the option of receiving this product, which is a list in alphabetical order by voter's name or by address. And to be included on this preliminary list of electors, or PLE, an individual must, on voting day, be at least 18 years of age, Canadian citizen, own, occupy, or rent property in the jurisdiction. So the PLE is not the voters list. It is simply one element of a larger process that allows the responsible municipality to then create the final voters list. So I think it's important to note that I want you to understand that just because a voter may or may not be on the PLE when it's published, because it's snapped and extracted at a point in time, it does not impede their right to vote. There are options to get them added to the list, the voters list. And with the pace of change of people buying and selling in communities, moving, unfortunately, deaths that occur, people change, therefore the list will change, and it is constantly changing. And that is why we provide or we deem the list preliminary when it comes to our role. So the next slide just highlights some of the strategies that we're going to leverage and use to support accuracy in the delivery of this legislative product. So we are committed to accuracy, and some of these strategies will include technology, such as leveraging voterlookup.ca, and Jeremy and I are going to share this presentation, so he's going to walk you through a little bit more about that. Partnerships such as the ones that we have built and have had historically with Elections Ontario and Elections Canada, and also providing our opportunities for property owners, the media, and our partners to better understand our role in the election process. And one example of that communication and partnership is our invitation and our appearance tonight. So while we're working to implement the legislative changes, in case you're not aware, we're working to implement legislative changes that are going to ultimately transfer the responsibility for the municipal list of electors over to our partner in Elections Ontario in 2024, we are still responsible for both the 2022 municipal election and then any by-elections that would occur into 2023. And again, Jeremy's going to highlight a little bit more about that in a future slide. So I will now hand it over to Jeremy to share out the enumeration project timeline and our further efforts in more detail to support this strategy for accuracy. And again, thanks for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you, Anne, and good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for having us. So next slide, please. So in terms of moving forward on enumeration timeline-wise, we've now provided the first legislative deliverable, the population of electoral groups, which is often referred to as the PEG report, in February. Product canvassing for product delivery with our municipal stakeholders has been completed as of last week. For your information, product canvassing is the process through which municipalities share their preferences regarding when they would like to receive their electoral products and when they would like voter lookup to redirect users to the municipality to be added to the voters list for the 2022 municipal and school board elections. Next up, our clerks can expect to receive the PLE, the preliminary list of electors, as Anne had highlighted, on August 2nd or August 22nd, dependent on which option they had selected based on their own personal preference. We have processed all submitted ward and poll changes to date, and we've now hosted 3 separate webinars that were well attended relating to enumeration, as well as equipping our municipal partners, school boards, and associations with a toolkit to assist them in promoting voter lookup. Next slide, please. So you may be asking, what is voter lookup? We keep mentioning it tonight. So MPAC created voterlookup.ca to provide electors with an easy way to confirm and update their information for municipal and school board elections. It's available year-round, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and allows eligible electors to confirm or update their information and name or address, or change their school support for electoral purposes. MPAC does face challenges with collecting information for all occupants of a property. MPAC is able to collect owner data for every property through land transfer statements. However, these documents do not always include data on other occupants in the property who may be eligible to vote. We're able to collect this information through voterlookup.ca, which is what really makes this such a valuable tool and resource. Next slide, please. I've included a screen grab of a YouTube video here that we produced. Rather than playing the video within the presentation, I know that often causes some technical issues. I'd encourage you to visit YouTube yourself and check out this short, informative video. Simply search voter lookup on YouTube and you'll see both an English and French version available for you. I'd encourage you to share this on your own social media platforms to help spread the message and importance of visiting voter lookup in advance of the upcoming election. Next slide, please. Perfect, thanks. At MPAC, we're doing our part to promote voterlookup.ca as well. In addition to a social media and outreach campaign, our property inspectors leave behind voter lookup promotional materials when doing field visits, and we're including buck slips and any property assessment change notices that we are mailing out to owners, informing them of the importance of voter lookup and encouraging them to visit it themselves. We also recognize that new voters, property tenants, and boarders are particularly challenging demographic for MPAC to capture. So key outreach is being done targeting renter and landlord organizations, as well as ratepayer associations, asking them to share MPAC's messaging with their respective constituencies. As well, organizations representing and interacting with post-secondary students will be targeted to reach another elusive demographic of voters to inform them to visit voterlookup.ca. Next slide, please. So the good news is we can see that everyone's efforts to promote voter lookup is paying off. When we're aware of an MPAC or municipality promoting voter lookup, we're able to see a corresponding spike in usage of the site. As you can see on the graph that we're sharing, the blue line indicates searches and orange changes applied. Certainly a pattern of correlation between those two lines. Since December, there have been over 100,000 searches on voter lookup, with 19% of users making additions or updates to their information. So again, it is making a difference. Please do keep promoting voterlookup.ca. Next slide, please. In December, we shared with all municipalities and school boards a toolkit designed to help them partner with us in promoting the use of Voter Lookup. The toolkit included a number of resources, including key messages, newsletter content, website content, social media content, graphics, and buck slips that could be utilized. In January, based on feedback from our municipal partners, we added additional items to the toolkit, including a video, an embedded link button, and a QR code that can be used for scanning and directly linking to voterlookup.ca. These items were shared with all clerks via email and are available on our MPAC website for you to utilize as well. Next slide, please. So looking forward beyond 2022, what's next in the future of enumeration with MPAC? As Anne had highlighted, you may already be aware, MPAC is working to implement legislative changes that will transfer responsibility for voters lists to Elections Ontario, effective January 1st, 2024. Rest assured, MPAC is still fully committed to maintaining the accuracy of the PLE, preliminary list of electors, for the 2022 elections. Further, even once this transfer is complete, MPAC will continue to support the enumeration process by sharing people data and including school support information with Elections Ontario. Next slide, please. And that sort of wraps up our overview and role in the enumeration process here at MPAC. I don't want to get too far off your agenda, but we're happy to entertain any questions that the group may have. If they aren't raised now and you need some time to think and reflect on it, you do have our contact information in the slide deck that will be shared out. Please do reach out to myself or to Anne, and we'd certainly be happy to entertain any questions you may have at a later time as well.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. You did half my job, so I'm really, really appreciative of that. So anybody have any questions in the chat? Raise your hand, physically raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Jeremy, you're hired to take my job. I think we're pretty good. So thank you very much, Jeremy, Ann, and Andrew. Greatly appreciated. And again, if there's any further questions, they'll either contact you or our local clerks who have all the knowledge. And I'm happy to move on to the next one. We have Rachel Enstedt and Jessica Rudy, and they're going to do a presentation by our local clerks.
Susan. So I'm Jessica Rudy. I'm the clerk for the municipality of Huron East, and Rachel Anstedt's just down the table from me. She's deputy clerk with Central Huron. We're just coming to talk to you about what voting will look like in Huron County. So not only as a candidate, but as an elector, it's important for you guys to know, to be informed about how the voter list works and how the voting process is going to work for the election in October. So we're just going to touch on these two pieces. And again, Jeremy covered some of our info as well, so he made it easy for us too. I'm just going to go over quickly on how electors can make sure they're eligible to vote and then to ensure that they're on the voters list. And then Rachel's just going to walk you through on how that process is going to work in October for you. Any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. So we do have the official voters list. As mentioned, it's going to be created from the preliminary list of electors, and we're going to be getting that by September. This list can be amended at your local municipality once it's received by the clerk, and it will have to be done through the completion of the form along with proof of identity and residence. It's going to be available to any candidates upon written request, and you just have to contact your local municipal office to find out when you have to go through the office, opposed to using voter lookup to be added to that list and to amend the list of electors. Any information can be updated or added to the list up until election day if required, but you do need to go to your election office to do this. And then I think it's on to you, Rachel, on the actual voting process.
Okay, so in Huron County, the 9 municipalities are going to be using internet and phone voting only through Simply Voting. So that means that there will be no official polling stations and there will be no paper ballots. If you do need assistance, or if you know voters who need assistance with accessing a telephone or the internet, you can contact your local municipalities and they will be more than happy to assist you with accessing those 2 items. Voter PIN letters will be delivered by the end of September or early October. So those letters will look like this. So this is what will be coming to you in the mail. As you can see on the screen, your address and your qualifying address will be listed on the PIN letter itself, along with the actual PIN. So the PIN number and the information below is what you will use to cast your vote. We do have a video from Simply Voting, and this video is helpful as it does outline the entire voting process from receiving your PIN letter to actually casting your ballot.
Simply Voting provides web-based and phone-based voting systems for municipal elections. We'll help you cast your ballot conveniently and securely. Before the election, you'll receive a voter information letter with a web address where you can vote online, a phone number so you can vote by phone, and other important information. Your letter will also contain your personal identification number, or PIN. Keep this letter safe. You'll need it to cast your ballot. Whether you choose to vote online or vote by phone, this video will help you to cast your ballot and review the results. To vote online, just go to the web address listed in your letter. Enter your complete date of birth, year, month, and day, and your PIN, and then click Log In. If you made a mistake, you'll be prompted to try again. Once you log in, you'll see your ballot, including all of the races in which you're eligible to vote, as well as an option to decline to vote. If you decline to vote, you will be asked to confirm that you do not wish to submit any votes in any of the races on the ballot. If you would like to vote, just work your way down the ballot one race at a time. In this example, I can choose a mayor for my town, a council member for my ward, and so on. For each race, read the instructions carefully and then make your selection. Or you may select no one and abstain from this race. In some cases, you may be prompted to select more than one option. In this example, I can pick up to 2 candidates. I can uncheck a candidate and make a different selection, but I can only pick up to 2 candidates for this race. Overvoting is not allowed. Your ballot may include one race or several races. Simply work your way down to the bottom. When you're finished, click Continue. You'll see a summary of your selections. Review them carefully. If you like, you can click Change to go back and make different selections, and then click Continue to return to the summary. When you're ready, click Confirm. Clicking Confirm is like dropping a paper ballot into the ballot box. Your vote is final and cannot be changed. Once you have cast your ballot, you will be automatically logged out and you will see your personal receipt code. Be sure to write down this code. To instead vote by phone, simply call the toll-free number listed in your letter from any touch-tone phone or from your cell phone.
Welcome to the telephone voting system for the municipality of any town.
You will be asked to enter your complete date of birth, year, month, and day, and then your PIN.
Please enter your PIN, followed by the number sign.
Enter your PIN and press the number key. If you made a mistake, you'll be prompted to try again. Once you log in, you will have the option to proceed to vote or to decline to vote.
the Anytown Municipal and School Board elections. To proceed to vote, press 1. To decline to vote, press 2.
If you decline to vote, you will be asked to confirm that you do not wish to submit any votes in any of the races on the ballot. If you would like to vote, you will hear the first race in which you're eligible to vote.
Mayor,
Be sure to listen closely.
please select one of the following candidates. To select Jane Doe, press 1. To select Philip Green, press 2. To select Charles Holder, press 3.
After listening to the candidates, you will hear
To abstain, press 0.
you may choose a candidate or you may choose abstain to leave this answer blank. In some races, you can choose more than one candidate.
Please select up to 2 of the following candidates.
Choose a candidate just like before, and then listen for more options.
You may select an additional candidate. If you are finished, press 0.
Choose a second candidate, or press 0 to move on without making another selection. Your ballot may include one race or many races. Simply work your way through one by one. When you're finished, you'll hear a summary of your selections.
Please confirm your choices. Mayor, Jane Doe. Councilor, Ward 1.
Listen carefully to the summary. When it's complete, you can confirm your choices or go back and make any changes.
To submit your choices, press 1. To change your choices, press 2.
Pressing 1 to confirm your choices is like dropping a paper ballot into the ballot box. Your vote is final and cannot be changed. Once you confirm your choices, you will hear your personal receipt code.
Your vote has been recorded. Thank you. Your receipt code is F as in Foxtrot, V as in Victor, 4-8.
Be sure to write down this code. You can hear it again if you need to.
To repeat your receipt code, press 1. Otherwise, press 2 or hang up now.
If you press 2, you will be automatically disconnected. When the election is complete, you can visit the web address listed in your voter information letter to review the results, including who won each race, how many votes they received, what percentage of the vote they received, and so on. And you can also enter your personal receipt code and then click Continue to confirm that your vote was recorded. Thank you for voting.
And the last thing I'd like to clarify just before questions is that in Huron County, our voting period does open on October 11th at 9 a.m. And it does go until voting day, which is October 24th, and ends at 8:00 p.m. And Jessica and I are available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Jessica and Rachel. Do we have any questions for these two fabulous ladies? In chat box or raise your hand, in or out? Going once, going twice? No, looks like it's good. It's a good sign that you've answered all their questions. Excellent. Okay, on to the next. That would be me. Are you going to put up something, Rachel? Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so this is going to be a really brief update from Huron County Council. So next slide, please. Huron County is governed by the County Council. This County Council is made up of 15 members from our 9 area municipalities. Representation is as follows: the heads of all 9 local municipalities, plus the deputy heads of ACW, Blue Water, Central Huron, Goderich, Huron East, and South Huron. Next slide, please. This is our county warden, Warden Glenn McNeil. He serves a 2-year term. This is elected by county council, and he acts as the head of council. At the inaugural session, county council elects a warden from among its councillors. The warden is the chief executive officer of the corporation and the head of county council. He chairs the county council meeting, sits as an ex officio member on all standing committees, and represents the county at a wide range of functions and activities. The county provides the following services to all residents of 9 municipalities that make up Huron County: economic development, planning and development, operations and emergency services. This is public works and EMS. We have 2 homes for the aged long-term care, Huron View and Huron Lee. Cultural services, which involves libraries, museums, and the jail. Social and property services. This is children's services, housing, and Ontario Works. The administrative structure. The most senior non-elected officer of the Corporation of the County of Huron is the Chief Administrative Officer, our CAO. This is currently Megan Wark. Megan directs all administrative services, operations, and programs of the county, serving as the corporate chief of staff. The CAO is the only employee of council. All department heads report to the CAO. The CAO reports to council and attends all council meetings in the role of the principal policy advisor. The clerk serves as the council secretariat, recording all resolutions, decisions, and proceedings of county council. The clerk provides administrative services to council, its committees, and its departments. The clerk advises as to procedural and policy matters. The clerk also prepares and maintains the bylaws, minutes of meetings, and agenda packages for the county. There's also the corporate services department, which is treasury, provincial offenses, and business technology solution, and our human resources department. This is a diagram of our organizational chart. The county has approximately 700 employees, the majority of which are in the Homes for the Aged and the Emergency Services departments. We have 4 unions and approximately 370 approximately 370 employees and approximately 330 non-union employees. So if you are lucky enough to become a member of county council, this is what we expect. County meetings. So council meets twice a month, usually on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. It's the first and third Wednesdays of each month. Meetings usually begin at 9 and are approximately 3 to 4 hours in length. There are occasionally special sessions of council at the call of the warden or the county clerk. Meetings normally take place at the county administration building, which is at the courthouse. Currently, we are using a hybrid model, meaning attendance is in person or virtually. We also have standing committees. The library board meets 9 times per year. Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee meets 5 times per year, and the Economic Development Board meets monthly. County councilors may be appointed to one of the standing committees or various organizational committees that are named on a report at the striking committee at the inaugural session. And that's it for county council, unless someone has any questions for me. So I'm gonna look in the chat. I'm gonna look out here. I don't see anybody. Look at this. This is good. I think I did a good job. But I think that's it. Okay, so basically that's it for the night. Unless anybody has a random question they want to throw in the chat or raise their hands. Anyone that's in attendance, if you want to talk to your local clerk, they're here. Anyone that's attending virtually, if you'd like to talk to your local clerk, you can certainly email them. Their email addresses are generally on their websites. I encourage you to reach out to them. They are fonts of information. They basically know everything about elections. They've been doing this for years. Although the election is October, they've been planning this election for at least 2 years. About 2 years. Okay. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I would also like to thank all the clerks for helping to plan this. I think it's important. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Central Huron, Rachel, our guru on the computer, and the IT department for not only providing the space, but all the technology. And it went fairly well. I mean, we're new to this. This is 4 years ago. We wouldn't even thought of doing a hybrid model. So I think that's it. I'm going to say this session's adjourned.